dangerous because it allows people to speak for themselves. And when you hear someone speaking from their own experience, whether it's a Palestinian child or an Israeli grandmother, an aunt in Iraq, an uncle in Afghanistan, you begin to understand where they're coming from. Maybe they sound like your child, your aunt, your uncle, your grandparent, your mother, your sister. And I'm not saying you agree with them. How often do we agree with our family members? But you understand, you sort of develop a common ground where they're coming from. It makes it much less likely that you'll want to destroy them. That understanding is the beginning of peace. I think the media can be the greatest force for peace on earth. Instead, all too often, it's wielded as a weapon of war. That's why we have to take the media back. I see the media as a huge kitchen table that stretches across the globe, that we all sit around and debate and discuss the most important issues of the day, war and peace, life and death, and anything less than that is a disservice to the servicemen and women of this country. They can't have these debates on military bases. They rely on us in civilian society to have the discussions that lead to the decisions whether they live or die, whether they're sent to kill or be killed. Anything less than that is a disservice to a democratic society. You know, I really do think that the media prevents an independent media, an honest, authentic media, prevents the othering of people, which is so dangerous. I mean, think about the birther movement. Think about the challenging of President Obama. Now, we cover the protests around Obama's policy on so many issues. How is it possible that with the immigrants' rights movement, the anti-war movement, gay and lesbian movement, environmental movement, all of these movements together elected the first African-American president in history, an amazing achievement in a land with a legacy of slavery, and then he becomes the deporter-in-chief, right? And even the mainstream immigrants' rights groups that have people inside the White House, very close to him, and outside, they're the ones who coined that term, deporter-in-chief. He's deported more immigrants than any president in history. How is it possible? And many groups, I think, after he was elected, were exhausted. They'd done something impossible. I mean, this remarkable history-making moment, the first African-American president. Poverty. The growing inequality between not only rich and poor, but the rich and the rest of us. You have 62, 63 wealthiest people in the world. 42 of them are from the United States, 2/3 of them. They make more than 3.5 billion people, than half the globe. Those are concerned about war and peace, about inequality, about the fate of the planet, are not a fringe minority, not even a silent majority, but the silenced majority, silenced by the corporate media, which is why we have to take it back and build our own media, and also challenge the corporate media, because they're using a national treasure. They're using the public airwaves that were built by all of us. It's not private property, right? As Woody Guthrie would say, it's not. That land is our land, TV land. And it matters. It's not the private property of private corporations. It's the way people learn about the world. And we've got to open it up. Back in World War II, where we started, you had the radio station that started by a war resister who said, we need a media outlet not run by corporations that profit from war, but run by journalists and artists, a brother and sister named Hans and Sophie Scholl in Germany. And they thought, what can we do in the face of the Nazi atrocity? They thought, well, the best we can do is put out pamphlets to ensure that the German people would never be able to say they didn't know. They put out a series of 6 pamphlets about what was happening. And on one of those pamphlets it said, we will not be silent. That saying should be the Hippocratic oath of journalists today, should be the Hippocratic oath of us all today. We will not be silent. Democracy Now!